Intrigued, 5 years ago, experts said this moment was 90 years away. Now, AI's here, changing how we create, think, and even feel. But at what cost?
Is AI dimming our sense of wonder or unlocking new frontiers? The line between human genius and machine magic is blurring. And the stakes? Everything.
We're diving into the science of awe, the ethics of algorithms, and the future of creativity. Ready to question everything? Let's go.
Things that are changing very fast. A lot of the AI experts I know said 5 years ago they thought what's happening now won't be happening for 90 years, that their children would be experiencing this. And I think in this AI moment, it's not clear where things are going.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something pretty fundamental, actually. Our sense of wonder, especially, with how fast things like artificial intelligence are changing everything.
Right?
So, our mission really is to unpack what wonder even is, how it might be shifting in this modern world, and crucially, how new ideas and knowledge get shared and, challenged in this environment.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's really about looking at that crossroads, isn't it? Where our human experience meets these really groundbreaking technologies, and also how we structure that whole process of learning and sharing knowledge. Big question we're kind of circling is that basic human capacity for wonder, is it actually at risk? Could it be fading? And how might something like AI change how we even perceive what's, extraordinary?
Okay, so let's start right there then. When we say wonder, what exactly are we talking about? Is it just like being totally awestruck, or is it more nuanced?
Oh, it's definitely more layered. You can think about it in maybe at least two main ways. First, there's what you might call awe-based wonder.
Okay.
That's that feeling you get, that excitement. Sometimes it's almost overwhelming, right? From seeing grand things like a huge natural landscape, or witnessing some powerful event like a storm, or even incredible human achievements. Intellectually or physically, or just mind-blowing facts. Physically, you might even notice, like your eyes go wide, maybe your mouth hangs open a bit, you might even stop breathing for a second.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
What it does fundamentally is it pulls us out of ourselves, out of the everyday grind.
Yeah.
It connects us to something that feels much bigger than our usual worries, kind of like a mental reset.
Absolutely, like seeing those incredible pictures from the James Webb Telescope,
Yeah.
Or hearing about some unbelievable athletic feat, your whole perspective just shifts.
Exactly that, but then there's another kind, sometimes called Socratic wonder.
Socratic wonder, okay.
Yeah, this is different. It's more abstract, less about being stunned by scale or beauty, and more about puzzlement, perplexity.
Oh, okay.
It pops up when you hit contradictions, things in language or thought that just don't seem to add up. Think of a philosopher wrestling with a paradox,
Right, trying to figure it out.
Precisely. It's a deep curiosity that actually drives you to dig into those contradictions to try and resolve them. It's not just a passing thought. It's really the engine for critical thinking, for science even.
Okay, that makes sense. One is outward-looking, the other more inward investigating ideas.
So what's going on inside, like in our brains when we feel these things, this awe or this puzzlement?
Yeah, it gets really interesting neuroscientifically. When we experience awe and wonder, certain key parts of the brain, they really fire up. Your prefrontal cortex, for example, becomes highly active.
And that's the part for planning and focus. That's exactly executive functions, planning, focusing attention, making decisions. So that heightened activity, it's basically our brain working hard to process the significance of what we're seeing or thinking about.
Trying to make sense of it.
Right, integrating this extraordinary new information into our existing understanding of the world. It's why those moments can feel so meaningful and memorable. The anterior cingulate cortex also shows more activity.
Okay.
That area is important for emotional processing, for feeling the weight of what you're experiencing, and, there are real benefits. Experiencing awe isn't just nice, it seems to be good for our well-being. There was even a study with neurology residents where over 85% felt less anxiety using VR as a relaxation tool, tapping into those awe-like experiences.
Wow. Okay. So it's powerful stuff, but what happens then? Can this sense of wonder actually fade? Can it decline as we get older, or maybe as the world just keeps changing so fast?
Unfortunately, yeah, it seems it can. This idea of a waning sense of wonder is something people talk about. You see it sometimes with, say, lifelong science fiction fans.
How so?
Well, that really intense feeling they got from stories when they were younger, it often kind of fades. The stories start to feel dated because the wild ideas in them, space travel, AI, robots, they become, well, normal, or at least familiar.
Right, reality caught up.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Our whole culture has just soaked in concepts that used to be purely speculative, mind-blowing stuff. So for younger people growing up now, maybe those things just don't pack the same punch. The extraordinary sort of becomes ordinary. And related to that, there's this common idea about creativity, right? It's like magic, pulling something out of nothing.
Yeah, the lone genius myth.
Exactly, but the reality is every creator, human, machine, algorithm, whatever, they always build on what came before. It's more about novel combinations than spontaneous creation.
Which brings us right back to AI, doesn't it? If finding that wow factor is getting harder, could AI help us find it again? Or does it just make things more complicated? Especially around creativity, because AI is creating some pretty stunning things now.
It's a really knotty issue, that intersection. Suancio. Take AI art. The big debate is, can something made by a non-human really be called art? It's contested territory. Some people point out, well, maybe animals already make art forms. There's even research showing pigeons can tell different artworks apart, believe it or not.
Pigeons? Seriously?
Seriously.
Yeah.
But the counter-argument, and it's a strong one, often comes down to intent. The idea that human creativity is driven by an internal need to express something.
Right.
As someone put it, no machine is driven to express itself creatively. It is prompted by the intention of the human. AI algorithms, they don't have life experience. They don't have self-awareness in the way we do. Even very advanced robots like AI DOH creating self-portraits, they lack that inner drive.
That's a really critical distinction, the why behind the creation. But even with that debate raging, AI-generated stuff is showing up everywhere, right? Even gonna be a gallery for it.
Absolutely. The world's first gallery dedicated to AI art focusing on ethical AI, apparently, is planned for LA. That tells you something about its growing presence and maybe acceptance.
Yeah, definitely.
But you still have critics who are, let's say, not sold on just seeing amazing images without knowing the human process, the practice behind it. They're more interested in the whole system, the humans involved, the thinking, not just the final picture.
So it circles back to that idea of building on things. The context matters.
It does. It reinforces that creativity, even AI-assisted, doesn't happen in a vacuum.
So it feels like AI is doing two things at once here. It's opening doors to new kinds of awe, maybe, but it's also forcing us to ask some pretty deep questions about what makes us human, what creativity is, and even about being manipulated. It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
It really feels that way. But the relation between AI and awe, it doesn't have to be a competition, a zero-sum game.
Okay, how do you mean?
We can still cherish those unmediated moments of wonder, being out in nature, seeing incredible human skill while also embracing how AI might reveal new kinds of vastness or beauty we couldn't perceive before. AI could genuinely be a wonder machine, expanding our horizons.
But with caveats.
Definitely with caveats. Risk is becoming too reliant on it, maybe losing touch with our own intuition, our own creative sparks. And you mentioned manipulation. That's a huge ethical concern as these algorithms get better and better at predicting what we want or what will grab our attention.
Yeah, that's worrying.
But if the potential is there for AI to be an amplifier of wonder, not necessarily the thing that kills it, even the complexity of the AI systems themselves, the sheer scale of computation, that could become a new source of genuine awe, right?
That's a fascinating way to think about it. So, okay, if AI is pushing all these boundaries, creativity, knowledge, maybe even wonder itself, how do experts? How does the world manage all this new information? How do we share it, debate it, make sure it's sound?
Right. And that leads us naturally to things like academic conferences because they're precisely the places designed for that rigorous exchange there, where that Socratic wonder we talked about gets actively played out.
Where the puzzling ideas get debated.
Exactly. Researchers present their latest work, often on things like AI, and it gets discussed, challenged, built upon. The primary way information gets vetted and spread, along with academic journals, of course. But conferences offer more too, right? You learn how to present complex ideas clearly. You get immediate feedback from peers. You meet potential collaborators. You just get a feel for where the whole field is heading.
And these aren't new, right? Conferences have been around a while.
Oh yeah, The first international academic ones started popping up back in the 19th century. They've certainly evolved since then, though.
How do they typically work now?
Well, you have the standard presentations, usually pretty short, maybe 15-20 minutes, followed by Q&A. Then you often have keynote speakers, usually big names in the field, giving longer talks. But there are also more interactive things, like panels, poster sessions, where you stand by your research display and talk one-on-one, and practical workshops.
Okay,
And obviously, the format itself has changed a lot recently. Post-pandemic, many are now virtual or hybrid. Mixing online and in-person attendance makes them more accessible globally.
that makes sense. But handling all that cutting-edge research, especially in sensitive areas like AI, must involve some pretty strict rules and ethical checks, right? You can't just show up and say anything.
Oh, absolutely not. There are rigorous processes. When you submit a paper, first it goes through basic checks, length, format, that kind of thing. Then critically, it gets scanned by plagiarism detection software, like Authenticate is a common one.
To ensure it's original work.
Exactly. Only then does it go out for peer review, usually to at least 3 experts in that specific area. They evaluate the methodology, the findings, the significance, and authors often get a chance to respond to the reviewer's points before a final decision is made. It's a dialogue.
So it's a tough screening process. What about the ethics within the research itself?
That's crucial too. Authors have to include a specific section in their paper detailing compliance with ethical standards. They need to state clearly whether ethical approval was needed, maybe for human subjects research, and if so, that it was obtained. Or they might state it was, say, a simulation study where no ethical approval was required.
Okay, very explicit.
And transparency about potential bias is key. You have to disclose any funding sources or any personal or financial relationships that could be seen as influencing the work.
Conflicts of interest.
Right. And the committees organizing the conference and reviewing papers, they're structured to avoid bias too. They aim for diversity geography, gender, background. If a committee member submits a paper, there are usually specific procedures to handle it impartially, sometimes even blinding the reviewers to the author's identity if possible. And committee members typically can't be keynote speakers to avoid perceived conflicts.
Seems like a lot of safeguards.
There are. And increasingly, there's a focus on inclusivity at the event itself. Things like encouraging preferred pronouns on badges, maybe providing ways for attendees to indicate phonetic pronunciation of their names. Small things that help make the environment more welcoming.
That level of detail really shows the effort to make these events fair and productive forums. Is the content usually captured for later?
Yes. Generally, the main sessions, keynotes, tutorials, educational tracks are required to be recorded. They often end up in online resource centers, like the IESPS Resource Center for Engineering Conferences, so the knowledge is preserved and shared more widely. There's also a deliberate effort in many fields to bridge the gap between academia and industry.
Bringing research and practice closer.
Exactly. Setting targets, for instance, to have a certain percentage of attendees from industry or aiming for more sponsorship from companies. It helps ensure the research stays relevant and finds its way into real-world applications faster.
It really paints a picture of how that Socratic wonder, that drive to question and understand, is channeled. These conferences are like structured environments for deep thinking and debate. So quite a journey today. We've explored wonder itself, from that jaw-dropping awe to that deep Socratic puzzlement. We've looked at AI, how it might be dimming some old sources of wonder, but also creating entirely new ones, forcing us to rethink creativity. And we've seen how academic conferences provide this vital structure for sharing and challenging all this new knowledge.
It really highlights the need for balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We need to figure out how to harness the incredible power of tools like AI while consciously nurturing our own distinctly human capacity for wonder and ensuring we have strong ethical frameworks guiding how we create and share information in this new era.
Absolutely. It makes you think, if AI can unlock these new vistas of information and creation, what personal deep dives, what areas of curiosity are you listening now inspired to explore? And maybe, just maybe, how might that personal journey spark a whole new sense of wonder for you?